Hello everyone. In this C++ tutorial, we're going to see the benefits of using struct, how to define it, declare it, and then how we can use it to better organize our code and make it concise. So before we start using a struct, let's say we're building a car system and we need to track multiple models. So let's say we want to define the make of the first car. So string car1 make equal, let's assume this is a Chevy model. Then let's say we want to initialize the year it was made. So int car1 year equal, for example, 2023. Next, let's declare the speed of this car. So this is a type double, car1 speed equals 65.5. And let's say we want to check if the engine is running or not. So this is a Boolean data type, car1 engine on. Let's assume this is true. And let's also assume we want to declare the variables for another car make. So we can copy this, paste it, and then this is a string car2 year, car2 speed, and then car2 engine on status. So let's say this is a Cadillac. The year it was made, let's assume this is 2025, and then the speed, let's say this is 85.5, and let's assume this engine is not running, so false. So this method here will work, but imagine you have 100 cars. So this becomes a nightmare to keep copy pasting and repeat. Also, it will make your code very long and messy. So instead of creating separate variables, we can group related data together using something called a struct. So in C++, a structure is a user-defined data type which allows to group variables of different data types. So let's see how we can do this in a better way. So to define or declare a struct, you can use the word struct in C++ and then give it a name of your choice. Since this is car-related data, I'm going to simply call it car. You open curly bracket, close curly bracket, and don't forget the semicolon at the end after the curly bracket. And then you start declaring your variables. So first we start with the make, so string make, and then we have an integer type year, and then after this we have the car speed. This is a double data type speed, and then fourth we have a boolean type engine on. So now inside your main you can create your variables, but first let me comment this section. To comment this section you can do it in various ways. You can use the forward slash star and then the star forward slash at the end of the section you want to comment out. So to create a variable for car1, so we can use the struct name, which is car with a capital C, and then we give it a name, so car1. And then for another car, we can simply call it car2, and so forth. Let's just stick to 2 for this example. Next, how you can assign values to car1, and then how you can assign values to car2. So let's do this. So to assign values for car1, you can type car1 and use the dot operator. And then to assign the make, so you can type make equal Chevy. And then same thing, car1 dot to initialize a year, to assign value to the integer year, so car1 dot year equal 2023. Similarly, car1 dot speed equals 65.5, and then car1 dot engine on equal true. So same thing, we can assign values to car2. So let's copy this section, paste it, and then instead of car1 we can use car2. This one, the make was Cadillac. The year we selected 2025, and then 85.5, and then the engine running we chose to be false. So now let's get rid of this section. So how can we print data to the output? So if you want to print out the make of the first car, so you can use cout car1 make. So you can use this notation here, car1.make. Let's start a new line. And then if you want to print the speed of the second car, so cout car2 speed, you can use this car2 speed. Also, you can start a new line. So let's run this code and see what we can see on the output. So we should see the make of car 1 and the speed of car 2. As expected, car 1 make Chevy, car 2 speed 85.5. Similarly, you can output any data that you wanted, the engine status, the year it was made, and so forth. So next, let me show you how you can define an array of structs and loop through them. So let's define a third model. So let's say this is car 3, and then let's say this is a GMC year 2022. The speed is 35.5 and the engine is running. Then as you can see, we have an error here. So car 3 is undefined, of course, because we did not define it here. So to define car 3, you can add car 3. And then this should get rid of the error now. But someone may come and say, okay, what's the benefit? We're still like copy pasting everything. So let's see how we can define array of structs. So instead of using car 1, car 2, and so forth, so let's just like define something called car, the name of our struct, and let's call it fleet. And then this is a size of 3 because we have 3 different models. And then instead of car 1, you can type fleet. So let's just like replace. You can choose selection only, and then you can type car 1, replace it with a fleet. This is car 2, replace with a fleet, and then select this car 3, replace with a fleet, car 3. So we still see an error because this is an array. You know, an array, if you have 3 elements, the first element in an array, as we saw in a previous video, is index 0, the second element is index 1, the third element is index 3. So the first element here, which is the first make we have, which this is a element 0, to access the element 0 fleet of array 0, and then we can repeat here. So this is the first element, and then here the first element. Then also in this section we can do the same thing. So I'm going to replace a fleet by fleet of the second element, which is index 1. And then here we can similarly also replace a fleet with a fleet of the last element, 2. This section here, we don't need it anymore. We can get rid of it. So next, how we can loop through these elements here. So to loop through these elements, we can use a for loop and loop from the first index I equals 0 up to the third index, which is equal to. So I less than 3 to go 0, 1, and 2, and then I plus plus. So if we want to output the data of the 3 makes or the 3 models to the screen, so we can use a cout and then fleet of which element? I, because we're looping the first loop, we use index I equals 0, so fleet of 0, and then when we're done, we go fleet 1, fleet of element 2, which is the GMC. So fleet of I dot name to access the name. Let's separate him by a space, and then fleet I dot year. Also, let's have a space separator. Actually, we used make instead of name. And then fleet I dot speed. Let's also have a space separator. And then lastly, we have a fleet of element I dot engine on. We can start a new line. And then now let's execute this code, and we're supposed to see the properties of the 3 cars on the screen. So on the first line, we have Chevy space 2023. The speed is 65.5. The engine status is 1 because true will give you 1 on the output. False status for Boolean type will give you 0. So in the second line, because we have an end line, then we have Cadillac 2025. The speed is 85.5, and the engine is not running because the status is 0. And then lastly, we have the properties of the third make, GMC 2022. The speed is 35.5 and the engine is in running status. And lastly, let me show you how we can use a function within a struct. So let me get rid of all of this here. So to use a function within a struct, so this function we wanted to perform a task, access the elements in this struct here and output them to the screen. So this is a void type because we just wanted to perform a task. We don't want to return anything. So let's call it print car. You can give it the name that you want it. This is of your choice. And then the struct we called car. And then let's give it a name C. Also, this is of your choice. You can call it lower case car. You can call it anything that you want, it fleet or anything. So I'm going to call it C. So what we want this function to do to print data to the screen. So we're going to use a C out to access the make of the car. So C.make. Let's separate them by a space as we did previously. And then C.year. Also, let's have a space separator. Then C.speed. Space separator. And then lastly, C.engine on. And let's start a new line after this. So now inside main, let's say also we want to have information for 3 different car types or car makes. So also the struct name we called car, so we can use the keyword car, and then let's call them a fleet and declare an array of size 3. So I'm going to show you another way to initialize variables to each one of this. So let's say the first car we have, so this is the element index 0, the first element in this array, and then equal. So we start with the make. This is a string type. This has to be in between double quotations. So this is, we use Chevy. Comma separator. Let's give it a year, 2023, for example. The speed 65.5. And then the engine status is running true. So now we can do the same thing for the second car type. So copy paste it. And this is element 2. So index 1 in the array. So this was Cadillac. And let's also say this is 2025 and the speed is 85.5. The engine is not running, so false. And also I'm going to paste it one more time, but this is the last element in the array. So car, fleet, element 2. This was GMC. Doesn't matter. Let's give it 2020 year. And then the speed is 35.5. And let's keep the engine status as running. So now to loop through these elements, we can use a for loop and start with index 0. And since we have 3 elements, so we want to stop at 2, 0, 1, 2. So we do I less than 3, I plus plus. And then what we want to do inside this for loop, we want to call the function. So to call a function, we can use the same name. And then inside it, what we want to do, we want a fleet of the I element. So for the first loop, we access the element of this car make, Chevy. And the second loop, when I equal 1, we access this array. And then when I equal 2, we access this array, and then we stop. So in between parentheses, fleet of element I, and that's it. So if we run this code, let's see what happens. So we define a struct here. Inside main, we have an array of 3 car makes, Chevy, Cadillac, and GMC. And then when we call the function, we go back, we look where this function is defined. So it's defined before main. And then this is what we do. We display the make, year, speed, and then the engine status for the first car, end line to start a new line, and we go to the second element, we call the function again, we print the properties, and then we loop to the third loop where I equal 2, and then we print the properties of the third car. So using structs, we can organize our code. This is like the blueprint. We can put any car-related data in it. And then also we can print it to the screen. So our code is concise, organized, and easy to read. I hope this video was helpful on structure. If these videos are adding value, please like, subscribe, and comment below. Thanks for watching.
Enjoyed this video? Subscribe to the Computer Engineering Notebook for more tutorials on computer architecture, embedded systems, and hardware design. And hit the bell to catch the next one.